Host sites for the 2026 World Baseball Classic were announced late last week. In case you missed it, here they are, as posted by Sean Spradling. For the pool stage, San Juan, Tokyo, Houston, and Miami. The two quarterfinal rounds will be in Houston and Miami. The championship round will be in Miami. What are my thoughts on these host selections? Did they make the right choices here? And what might the makeup of each 5-team pool look like? That's what I'm trying to answer here today. Let's look at each host site individually first. Tokyo Dome should surprise no one. It's been host for at least one round of every WBC since the event first began. And since they're only going with one venue in Asia this time, Tokyo Dome's gotta be the one. Largest capacity ballpark in the largest city. And it's a dome, no threat of a rainout. Other choices could have been Gocheok Sky Dome in Korea or Taipei Dome in Taiwan. Gocheok Sky Dome has less than half the capacity of Tokyo Dome. They take a big hit in ticket sales if they went there. Taipei Dome wouldn't work because we don't know if Taiwan will even qualify for the WBC. Was it the right call to choose only one site in Asia? Yes, it was. The Caribbean needs two pools, not Asia. Last time in Taiwan they had Cuba, Panama, Netherlands, Italy. Taiwan was the only country in that pool from that part of the world, and when Taiwan wasn't playing, attendance was pretty low. In the Tokyo pool at the last WBC, attendance was great, but it just wasn't competitive. Of the 5 teams, only 3 had a chance. If we put all the countries from that side of the world in a single pool, it becomes a lot more competitive. Besides, Asia will likely have one less team. China's not going to requalify. The Caribbean will have the same number, or even more than last time. San Juan, Puerto Rico, Irán Batorn Stadium. It's nice to see back. It was host for pool play of the first 3 WBCs, but not the last 2. This has always been the go-to venue for international baseball in the Caribbean. Attendance is always pretty good. Not surprising they went with this one. Only downside is San Juan getting selected means Santo Domingo is out. We knew only one of them could possibly be chosen. The Dominican Republic has never hosted a WBC, even though they've got a good stadium that's up to international standards, just hosted an MLB exhibition series back in March, and would no doubt pack the stands for every WBC game they get the chance to host. But it was one or the other, and it wouldn't seem right if the signature stadium of the Caribbean islands sat vacant for a 3rd straight WBC. The one city that will be a first-time host in this WBC is Houston. California, Florida, and Arizona have all hosted WBC rounds more than once. Seemed like it was only a matter of time before Texas was given the chance. Minute Maid Park is a nice place. I'm sure attendance will be really good there. Unfortunately, this was also a case of one or the other. Texas in means Mexico out. Mexico didn't get to host last time, and it would have been nice to have it at Mexico City's Arpelu Stadium. The ballpark's only 5 years old, holds over 20,000 fans, and hosted MLB regular season series the last 2 years. And it would have been a nice way to keep the momentum that baseball's had going in Mexico in recent years, especially since Mexico's run to the semifinals in last year's WBC. But Houston serves that purpose too. I'm sure Mexico will be playing at Minute Maid Park for pool play, and the crowd will be dominated by Mexican supporters. Then there's Miami. It's been such a great host the last 2 times. No one's surprised to see it here again. I don't like the idea of a permanent WBC host, but it would just seem wrong if Miami was left out. It would be like not including Tokyo. And with all the Caribbean countries in the WBC, there's no better place for them all to meet than Lone Depot Park in Miami. After pool play, the top 2 teams from San Juan move on to Houston. The top 2 from Tokyo move on to Miami. The Houston and Miami pool rounds start one day later and end one day later. So while they're playing their final games, the qualifying teams from Tokyo and San Juan are traveling over. They found that this format worked best last time, but it means that Miami once again gets all 3 rounds, and another city, in this case Houston, gets the pool stage and the quarterfinals. If you look at each selection individually, as we just did, it seems like they made the right choices. Could have gone with Santo Domingo and Mexico City, but San Juan and Houston are also good choices. Hard to argue against them. Tokyo's an obvious one. They'd be crazy to not go there. Miami has already proven itself as the best host city in the US, so why go anywhere else? But now take a step back and look at all the host cities together. Countries hosting the pool stage are Japan, the US, and the US territory of Puerto Rico. Quarterfinal hosts are the US and the US. Championship round will be in the US. This is not a good look for the WBC. One of the great things about this tournament is that it's not all hosted in one location. In every edition, they can bring a piece of it to a few different countries. But we've got Miami for the 3rd straight time, Tokyo for the 6th straight time. The only new place they're going to is yet another American city. San Juan I can't really argue with. It'll be 13 years since the last time they hosted. but people will inevitably point out that Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, not a country, and that there are really only 2 countries hosting this one. Won't be the first time for that, actually. The very first WBC in 2006 was played in the US, Japan, and Puerto Rico, only. But that was the first one. The tournament was scrapped together quickly. We didn't even know if the WBC was going to last. Now that the WBC has become one of the world's biggest sports tournaments, it seems like such a step backwards. Besides, in the first WBC, Puerto Rico not only hosted the first round, but also the second round. In 2026, the US will get all of the quarterfinals. The 2023 WBC also had just 3 countries, US, Japan, and Taiwan, but Japan got one of the quarterfinal rounds. The next WBC will have a higher percentage of games hosted on the US mainland than any WBC before it. And that's why I would have gone with Mexico City over Houston or Santo Domingo over San Juan. Then whichever ones you don't pick this time you go with for the 2029 edition. It just would have looked better that way. Or, I know it went more smoothly having pool stage venues hosting the quarterfinal rounds, but maybe it would be worth sacrificing that in order to give more places the chance to host. You could have pool play in Mexico City and Santo Domingo, quarterfinals in Houston and San Juan, then the championship in Miami. But then they'd be taking a hit in attendance, and I know that's their top priority, so I guess we won't be seeing that. Anyway, like I said, nothing wrong with each choice they made for host cities. Just feels like they could do more to bring the tournament to different parts of the world, that's all. Anyway, the competition is the most important part. Last year there were some problems with the balance of the competition in the pools. With the way power is distributed in the baseball world, if you have 20 teams divided into 4 5-team pools, then typically each pool will have one dominant team with a really good chance of winning it all, one team that looks like it's going to get crushed, and then 3 teams that look about equal. What we got in Pool A last time was no dominant team, no weakling either, 5 teams that looked like they were all on about the same level. And it showed in the results. All 5 teams went 2-2. The craziest part is that one of them was declared champion and another one had to requalify. Pool B had 1 dominant team and 2 teams that really had no chance. The whole pool was pretty much determined on the first day when Australia beat Korea. Pool C was standard. Pool D was dubbed the Pool of Death. 3 teams all with realistic chances of winning WBC gold. And another team that was coming off a top 6 finish at the previous WBC in 2017. Didn't seem fair. But balance of power isn't the only concern when putting these groups together. You want to try and group them by region so that fans can more easily travel to see their country play. And it's also nice if they're not grouped with the same teams they were with last time. But sometimes that's unavoidable, as you'll see. Let's take a look. Here's what I've got for the Tokyo group. If it looks familiar, that's because it's the same teams as last time, minus China. We don't know for sure who the 5th team will be until after the qualifiers next year, but we're pretty sure it'll be Taiwan. And that makes this pool tougher than it was last time. You've got 1 dominant team, Japan, the defending champions. Australia, Korea, and Taiwan all have a good shot at being the 2nd team to advance. Czech Republic will have a harder time making it out this time. But this is their 2nd WBC, time for a bigger challenge. It should get harder every time. I know it's not ideal having 4 of the same 5 teams together, but it makes too much sense. Japan, of course, will be in the pool it's hosting. Korea and Taiwan are short flights away. Australia, not a short flight, but it's as close as they're going to get. They could swap out the Czech Republic with another team that finished 4th in pool play last time, just to shake things up a little bit. I do think they'll try to include 1 semifinalist from last time, 1 team that bowed out in the quarterfinals, 1 team that finished 3rd, and 1 team that finished 4th in pool play. But the Czech team gained a lot of fans in Tokyo last time. They don't have any connections to any other host cities. This seems to be where they fit in best. In Houston, I've got Mexico, Italy, Netherlands, and Great Britain. Mexico will be here for sure, kind of like a home ground for them. Without the USA in their pool this time, they'll be the crowd favorite in every game. Having Netherlands here makes the group look tough, but remember that if Curaçao qualifies, the Dutch team will not have any Curaçao players on their roster. If that happens, they may have trouble re-qualifying. If Curaçao does not qualify, then all the Curaçao players can join the Netherlands team. And as we've seen in past WBCs, a Netherlands team with all the best players from the kingdom is capable of slaying the biggest giants. When I draw up these groups, I do so without knowing which teams will qualify. These groups could change depending on what countries advance out of next year's qualifiers. The favorites, aside from Taiwan, which I've already mentioned, are Colombia, Nicaragua, and Curaçao. If Curaçao qualifies, everyone will want to see them take on the Netherlands. I think that would be a big deal, and the WBC would be wise to try and set it up. So I can imagine Curaçao being the 5th team here. Other teams with a chance of qualifying are Brazil, they've got a pretty good chance. Germany and Spain have an outside chance. If any one of them qualifies, it really doesn't matter where you put them. In Miami, I've got USA, Venezuela, Canada, and Israel. USA reached the championship game last year. Venezuela won the group of death. Canada and Israel are not quite on the same level, but they're both good enough to pull off an upset on a good day. And for the fifth team, if they qualify, Colombia. That would make this a competitive group up and down. Not too much, but well balanced, with 2 countries as the favorites and 3 more that all have a realistic chance. In San Juan, I've got Puerto Rico, Cuba, Dominican Republic, and Panama. I really want to break up Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic this time, but I don't see how it's possible. If we put the Dominicans in the Miami group, then you have Venezuela, USA, and Dominican Republic in that group. This group here looks tough, but I wouldn't call it a group of death. Last year, Pool D had Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and Venezuela. This time we have Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and Cuba. Cuba may have reached the semis last year, but from watching them play, I'd say Venezuela is much stronger than Cuba. Then we'd have Panama and, if they qualify, Nicaragua. Let them bring their Central American rivalry to the island. They'd be seen as the 2 weakest ones in the pool, but not really weak. They've got major league talent. They'd be able to compete. I don't know if you can tell, but I really don't have a lot of confidence in my picks for these groups, and a lot will depend on which countries qualify next year. But this is what I've got for right now. And what about you? What teams do you think will be playing in what groups? Also, do you think they made the right choices for the host cities? Let us know in the comments. That's all for this one, and until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya!